And you're listening to the second hour of Christian Talk That Rocks. I'm Richie L. A couple of websites for you, ChristianTalkThatRocks.net or ChristianTalkThatRocks.com. The live on our email address is talktorichiel@gmail.com, TalkTorichiel@gmail.com, talktorichiel@gmail.com. You'll also notice there at those websites, got an awful lot of ways you can pick this broadcast up in podcast format at any time. I'm just going to throw out a few. Well, there's 12, but I'm not going to list them all. So we've got iHeartRadio, we've got Spotify. Latest one is Odyssey, which is a huge deal for us. We also have Apple, so many ways to get the broadcast that format. Also, flagship station WMVA The Gold Rush, which can also be found at Odyssey.com. Just search WMVA The Gold Rush, or also radio.net, and newest affiliate, Thunderous Radio, at thunderousradio.com. We're very excited about this guest we have on this afternoon. He's MIT-trained physicist. His name's Tom Sheahen, Ph.D. He's the author of a new book called Everywhen, God, Symmetry and Time. Dr. Sheahen challenges the notion that science and religion are incompatible. In fact, we were just kind of talking about that in the last hour, and that you have to give up one or the other to be consistent. He talks about the Big Bang, evolution, Genesis, concepts of heaven. He has got an impressive resume. For example, again, he's got a degree in physics from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, aka MIT. During his 45-year career as a research physicist, predominantly in energy sciences, he worked for Bell Telephone Laboratories, although I won't hold that against him, the National Bureau of Standards, various research corporations. He didn't laugh, so I don't know if you found that funny. The U.S. Department of Energy, Argonne National Laboratory, and the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. He's also chosen as a Congressional Research Fellow by the American Physical Society. So a very impressive resume, but I'm giving you a little bit of a hard time about Ma Bell there and all that.
That's quite all right.
Well, we all have our crosses to bear, right? So I want to get into this with you because this is very exciting to me as a Christian, and I've had a lot of debates with folks over the years, and sometimes on this show and so forth. So many people seem to think, and a lot of our universities pretty much preach this, sadly, that, look, that Bible, forget that thing, that's old, it's archaic, it's stories, it's ancient, it's patriarchal, it's misogynist, it's racist, it's this and that and everything else. So put that thing aside, use your brain, because it's all about science and about understanding science and understanding the true formation of our universe, the Big Bang Theory, all that. And that's typically what a lot of people, when they go into, quote unquote, a secular university, college education system, they're told, put that Bible away and just pay attention to what I'm telling you. Seems like that's the way it's done now.
It's true. They do that to a great extent, and predominantly the people who are doing this are not people who are real scientists, that is, doing chemistry, physics, etc., but professors of something else who have heard about what somebody else said about science. And they've grossly misinterpreted the reality of science, which in fact points very strongly towards the Creator, an intelligent being far beyond us, who loved the universe and made it for us. And they miss all of that in their very short-sighted interpretation of science.
Let's dive into this, too. Kind of a hot topic. Roe v. Wade got flipped, of course. And in the original decision, in my opinion, and not just my opinion, but and I'm sort of a shade tree constitutional scholar. I'm getting some formal education on constitutional scholarship. But a lot of critics of Roe v. Wade said, these justices kind of played doctor and kind of played scientist. And didn't really stay in their lane, which is one of the problems. There's many problems with Roe v. Wade. But that having been said, they seem to have sort of a wishy-washy attitude of when life begins. Scientifically, and you are a scientist, scientifically, Dr. Sheahen, when does life begin?
Okay. You have two gametes, one from the male parent and one from the female parent, and those come together, and the moment they do so is known as conception. And what happens then is you have a brand new DNA molecule which has all the programs, all the details, all the projected growth and development of that individual from there on. And that's life begins at conception. There are many people who are trying to find some excuse for different points and different choices. My friend Stacy Trasanko said it very well. Nobody questions when life begins for a spider, for a puppy, or for anything else. The only species that is subject to this strange scrutiny is unwanted human beings. And even a wanted human being, life begins at conception. So all the trickery and all the excuses and all the pretend about different times of development, every one of them can't find the transition they want. They can't find that break point, and the reason is that break point doesn't exist. It's all one continuous process. Now that's science, and all the people who are abandoning science to think up excuses are mistaken.
And I find it curious, interesting, the phrase that you used, abandoning science. What you hear from so many folks, oh, no, we're promoting science. This is the new science, and science is changing and evolving, and you Neanderthals that believe this stuff about, babies when life begins and what the Bible says, and this, that's just a cluster of cells. That's just a glob of cells. That's not human life yet. Come on.
I've heard all those things too, and it's a very commonplace excuse because, frankly, for men, having Roe versus Wade in place was real nice because you got out of your responsibility.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh, that's a girl's problem. Let her take care of it. Don't bother me about it. But now men have got to take a look at this reality and say, I have some responsibilities here too. Those responsibilities begin at conception, and they follow throughout the entire development of the baby into a person and so forth. In my book, I give the example of the eruption of baby teeth, and 20 years later, the eruption of wisdom teeth. This is all right there in the program of DNA. It's going to happen because of the nature of the DNA, and that is an idea that God had long before any of us ever thought of it. And when he thought up symmetry principles, thought up the laws of physics, thought up science for chemistry, biology, and so forth, all this was in the plan. And we today can look at the science and biology and say, okay, this is what it really is. And every one of the people who is taking a close look at this sort of thing finds that they can't find any kind of excuse or transition point to say the baby isn't real until such and such date. It just isn't there.
Yeah. We're speaking with MIT-trained physicist Dr. Thomas Sheahen, Ph.D., author of a new book, Everywhen God, Symmetry and Time. And by the way, while he and I are speaking, if some of you listening, some of you guys want, you can go to ChristianTalkThatRocks.com, go to the guest page, and you will see the blurb that we have up there about him. You'll see his picture, and there's a link there for enroutebooksandmedia.com /everywhen, and just click on that link. It'll take you straight to info about the book. Now, I want to maybe put you on the spot here a little bit, because I know we've got soccer moms and we've got the soccer kids listening, okay? I know we have a few kids that listen sometimes, and big kids like myself.
Good.
Dinosaurs. Now, what's the deal with dinosaurs, the Bible, and all that? Talk to us about dinosaurs.
Well, okay. God, in creating the universe and the development of everything on Earth and so forth, this original plan that I said it exists. He knew what he was doing. And there were many branches on the tree of evolution that brought about various different things. In the plant life, great diversity. In animal life, equal diversity. And the earliest surge in the animal life size was to great big objects with big teeth. And the dinosaurs were the pinnacle of that. But, as happens occasionally, things that are floating out there in space come and strike the Earth. And that changed the weather so much, clouded the sky so much that all the plant life died and the dinosaurs had nothing to eat. And as a result, they died out. That is not something that God intervened with and had like throwing a lightning bolt, but rather it was something in the very nature of the universe that this can happen. If we had another big rock like that, a bolide as they're called, strike the Earth now, we could live through it. It'd be tough, but it would be okay. But the dinosaurs did not have any resilience against outside influences, and that's what caused them to die.
With regards to the Big Bang, quote unquote, theory, the Big Bang theory. Now, as I understand it, and how it was taught to me in school and all that, is that there was these particles ping-ponging around the universe for how many ever eons, or God was throwing them around, whichever, however you want to look at it, because I know Christians got to put it maybe sometimes to spin, but whichever, there's these particles ping-ponging around the universe. One of them suddenly ran some sort of a cosmic traffic light, slammed into the other, and there was this gargantuan explosion, and now here you and I are talking. Your thoughts?
Well, that's a fanciful science fiction-y type way to look at things. But the way I look at it is this. God has this thought, this supreme intellect, could think and came up with such things as symmetry principles, and those cause there to be laws of physics. And he also thought up space and time together. Space-time as a unit is something that has escaped people's attention for thousands of years. Only since Einstein have we understood space and time have a relationship.
Right.
So, by creating space and time together, that was the beginning. The Big Bang. There was no before the invention of time. How could you have a before when there's not such thing as time? So when God invented time, then after that we could use words like before and after. But his creation at the very, and I have to use the word beginning, when time and space were created by God's thinking, that began a tremendous development of energy, radiation, things coming into being. And some physicists say, well, it came into being out of nowhere. No, that's not so. It came into being because God created the conditions and created the universe into which it could happen. And that's a big difference between, say, like Stephen Hawking, who says the universe created itself. No, God was the one who thought up this thing and who invented the whole idea and made it all happen. And as it happened, the unfolding that took place was a hot radiation ball expanded, and then certain particles started to condense out of the radiation. And after that, certain things solidified into things called nuclei, and atoms formed, and so forth. This is all happening in a matter of seconds, by the way.
Right.
This is the very beginning. But then, as the universe continued to expand and expand and expand, all this gas and dust and simple atoms and so forth spread all over the place. But because of the force of gravity, which God created, they eventually started to come together. And eventually they came together in such a tight ball that they started to light up and give off fire or heat themselves. And that was a star. And it happened all over the place, lots of times. And it happened so many times in certain places that clusters of stars formed, which we now call galaxies. And we have out there in the universe, we think, about 100 billion galaxies, and every one of them contains 100 billion stars.
Yes.
And it's all part of the original design that God thought up.
It's wild to think about that. You know, there's that verse in Scripture I'm reminded of that says the heavens declares God's glory, and now they've got this new telescope that's online, not the one that's supposed to be better than the Hubble. And they're saying
the James Webb one.
Yeah, the James Webb one. And they're saying that they're seeing way out supposedly on the edge of the universe, and they claim they're seeing some pretty mind-blowing stuff. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, duh, because, I mean, if the heavens are declaring God's glory, hello, you're going to see some pretty wild stuff.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. As they look with the with the James Webb telescope, they're seeing not only farther out, but further back in time, closer to the beginning. And every step they take shows God's glory. And taking those steps is the art of science. This is what we do in science. We try to learn more and go further and explore deeper. But as we do, the whole process, the results, the outcomes, the experiments, the observations, all point towards the glory of God.
In other words, this whole universe, I know you referred to Stephen Hawking, he made it sound like it was an accident. You know, again, like, okay, there was these ping-ponging particles in the universe, and one of them, like I said, ran a cosmic stop sign, and boom, hit the other, and voila, we're all here by a big a big traffic accident that happened amongst particles,
Yeah.
a bazillion years ago or whatever. And, I've never really bought that one either. I respected Stephen Hawking's word intelligence, but when I heard that, I'm like, okay, I don't know. I'm not buying that one. Because then that begs the question too. All right, well, where did those particles come from, and who made the particles? So you're still. It seems like to me, any way you start tracing it back, you're going back to God, or you're going back to some sort of intelligent design. Even if you're an agnostic that doesn't believe in God, or the God of the Bible, that is, you're still going back to somebody wound up the clock. It wasn't just some accident, out in the cosmos somewhere.
Well, that's quite true. And centuries ago, right after Newton, the prevailing point of view among many philosophers was that God wound up the clock, set it off, and then walked away from it and didn't bother anymore. But no, it isn't like that at all. The reason I chose the word everywhen is deliberate, because it's an unfamiliar word. We all know what everywhere means, but nobody knows what everywhen means, and that signals that we humans are not capable of comprehending time in a overarching way, the way that God can comprehend time. God is present to all time. The fact that something happened 13 billion years ago or yesterday are equal. God doesn't have to look at his watch. He doesn't have to stand up and watch it. He doesn't have to wind up the clock and set it off and then tinker here and there. That kind of God is something that the atheists deny, but we Christians deny that God too, because we've got a better God. We understand the true power of God, and we're not going to consider him to be a toy maker, a watchmaker, or some kind of artisan that's just tinkering around. The grandeur of his creation is incredibly marvelous, and that's what you find when you get out to the outer reaches of science and look deeply into the heavens, the telescopes, the textbooks, the things that you can understand in your laboratory, all again and again and again point back towards God's in infinite wisdom and infinite superiority to anything humans could do. And when I say everywhen, I'm calling attention to God's ability, but it also calls attention to human limitations, because humans cannot grasp things the way God does, and therefore we imagine that God is limited to just the same as we are, and that's a major mistake.
Oh, yeah.
That causes a lot of trouble, a lot of confusion, and a lot of professors and a lot of universities deny that inferior image of God. And I say to my readers, go ahead and deny the inferior image, but get a greater and superior image, boost up your own thinking, step up to a new level of thinking, and realize that there's a whole lot more out there in nature than we have ever been able to comprehend.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I mean, we're still, I'm amazed at when they drop down these deep sea sort of unmanned diving bells, and they kind of poke around the bottom of the ocean. They're finding all kinds of new species every time they go down. Wild looking, weird looking stuff. It looks like out of a science fiction movie. And there's just so much of even just our planet that we don't even know yet, and species we still are discovering. It's crazy. And again, all of it, of course, declares God's glory. Got just about a minute or two left, and I wanted to ask you as well, in thinking about how the Lord moves through, I guess you could say through, in and around, if you will, the time-space continuum that you and I and our physical bodies are more or less locked into, though we can pray to the Lord and reach out to the Lord and experience miracles anyway, in spite of those quote-unquote three-dimensional constraints. But the Lord has the ability, because he is the maker of it, the creator of it, he can move in, through, and around that. And that gives, I guess the point I want to make, or bounce it off of you, is, as those of faith, that kind of gives us that little extra, I hate to use the term edge, but I'll use it, that edge, so to speak, when we have that relationship with Christ, when we have that relationship with the Lord, that eternal relationship, we've sort of got that little extra something,
Well, the extra
in this
something
realm
we have is twofold. It is humility, because we understand that we were a whole lot less than God.
Right, saved by
grace. We're not
grace.
going to overstep it. And the other thing is confidence. We can be confident that God knows what he's doing, even if we can't see it. And one of the things I repeatedly say in the book to my readers is, be not afraid. Do not think that science is going to destroy your understanding of God. It may brush aside some childish understanding, but when you stay with it and you understand that faith and science work together, as you progress along and use both of them together, that's a great way to advance in your understanding of God.
The book is Everywhen, God, Symmetry, and Time. That's Everywhen, God, Symmetry, and Time. And Dr. Sheahen, where can people pick that book up?
Well, a lot of people buy books these days on Amazon. And so it's there on Amazon. After taxes, it's about $20, and they get it to you incredibly quick. If you have Amazon Prime, you'll have it in a couple days.
And it sounds like to me it'd be worth the investment to have that in your Christian library. And thank you for being a part of the show and sharing with us, Doctor, that the Bible and science are not genuine science, are not incompatible, but actually harmonize and point back to the wonderful ultimate creator, the one who spoke and the universe leapt into existence. Thank you so much for being part of our...
right.
Thank you so much for being part of the broadcast. And let's get you back on soon, because there's other stuff. I really probably should have booked you for about an hour and a half, because I'm sitting here with about 1,000 questions I've got for you. But we'll bring you on another time and give you and let you have, maybe wind you up and let you go for an hour.
I'd be pleased to talk with you and answer questions from your audience, too. As
well. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. And we're going to pray that book goes everywhere. The book is Everywhen, God, Symmetry, and Time. Our guest, Dr. Tom Sheahen. Thanks for being a part of the broadcast. Have a great day.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye now. Be sure to check out the websites ChristianTalk.rocks.net or .com. Special thanks to our guest today, Dr. Thomas Sheahen. Sure, take care of those that you love. Remember, God is love. See you next time.